Today I want to talk about Jazz Jennings and the mental distress that everybody who follows Jazz Jennings saw on the internet and TV. I'm not using Jazz Jennings footage because I've had problems with people getting strikes against me with copyrights and stuff, so I'm just going to use this wildlife footage as background to hopefully avoid that problem. So I want to talk about two things. How should we appropriately talk about Jazz Jennings? Like, what's the best way to talk about them given all the controversies? And also talk about the enormous mental health struggle they're going through and what's a compassionate way to talk about that. So let's start by how we address Jazz Jennings. Personally, I have struggled with gender roles pretty much my whole life. By the time I was 6 years of age, as far as I was concerned, there was no relationship between my biology and societal imposed gender norms. Obviously, a 6-year-old doesn't have those words in their head, but I certainly had the concepts in my mind. I understood what it meant. And I struggled mightily with gender norms, and in a few of my teenage years, I struggled with not liking the female body I had been given, wanting it to be more masculine. I used to obsess. What would it be like to be male? What would it be like in terms of working? What would it be like in terms of sex? What would it be like in terms of socially and freedoms and not freedoms and yada, yada, yada. I eventually settled on I'm going to work with the female body I was born with because I want to birth and raise a child or possibly more than one child. So I thought, okay, I'm going to work with this body. In terms of gender norms and dressing and behavior, has always been a huge struggle for me. To me, gender was a costume I put on to interact with people to get what I needed and get what I wanted, and that's just how I saw it. I didn't see it any gender behaviors and norms and dress. I didn't see it as any inherent characteristic to me. It's performative, strictly performative. All right, so that's kind of my quick background. So Jazz, I try to avoid pronouns. Because I don't want to get in trouble. Because it's such a touchy subject and it's a constantly moving target. It's like trying to nail Jello on a wall. There's no clear definitions and it's just a hot mess. So I just try to avoid using pronouns. Now, I understand some people, when they talk about Jazz, they refer to Jazz as a male because they have XY, because Jazz has XY chromosomes. I understand that perspective, but I don't know what it accomplishes. Jazz is mega famous. We all know what Jazz's chromosomes are. It's not a secret. It's not a secret at all. So and given the enormous mental struggle that Jazz goes through, I don't know what purpose it serves to keep using masculine pronouns on Jazz. I mean, I get why people are doing it, but I don't know. I just don't use pronouns, right? And that's just how I get around it. Jazz, it's Jazz. I shouldn't say it. Sorry, Jazz. I apologize. I didn't mean to dehumanize you, Jazz. So I refer to Jazz as Jazz, and I just want to avoid pronouns altogether. And Jazz, if you're watching this, I really want this to be a respectful video. That's really what I want it to be, respectful, with empathy. And I'm not choosing one side or another, but I do want you to know, Jazz, if you happen to be watching this, I want this to be a respectful video and not in any way insulting to you. All right. So we all saw the enormous mental meltdown that Jazz had on national television. Everybody saw it, the suffering and the confusion. And obviously we're not inside Jazz's mind. We can only speculate and guess. And I suppose my take on it is, I don't know why Jazz is suffering, but I would like there to be a space for Jazz to freely express feelings, emotions as and when they come up. And if we could avoid making conclusions and instead try to as an international community of people who are interested in jazz and following jazz, to have a space, whatever our internal beliefs might be, just to have a space of compassion that Jazz is a human being who is suffering. We can agree with Jazz, disagree with Jazz in terms of all the decisions made in Jazz's life, in terms of transitioning and medicalization and surgeries or whatever. We don't have to agree or disagree. In order to be compassionate and have and give a space for Jazz to freely express themselves, we can listen, we can be there, we can learn. And I would like to see us be less, I don't know, how would I put this? I guess I wish Jazz had more space to freely express themselves and be themselves. And I think if we try to make boundaries and make conclusions, that we're leaving Jazz less room to be open and honest as they progress through life. And I think all of us, whatever side of the issue we're on, I think all of us could learn a lot more if we give the space. Or if we want to talk about it, could we do it with dignity? You can disagree with somebody, but do it with dignity. Right? We don't have to be mean or insensitive or... So if, for example, you are absolute, I will never use female pronouns on an XY human, I will never use male pronouns on an XX human, and you know what? That's totally okay. You don't have to. But maybe just don't use pronouns as one solution, perhaps. Given that Jazz has never experienced male puberty, that's pretty obvious. Anyone who's followed Jazz's life, we all know Jazz never experienced male puberty. So it's pretty obvious, whatever Jazz's future, it would be incredibly difficult, whatever decisions are made in the future. How would Jazz fit into a male gendered world? That could be pretty difficult. And I think that's why I don't want to use... That's one reason why I don't want to use male pronouns on Jazz, because Jazz never even went through male puberty. I mean, it's kind of... I don't know. I just want to have compassion. Like I said, I don't even want to use pronouns at all. Like I avoid pronouns on people who, whatever chromosomes they are, however they identify. I do my best to avoid using pronouns. That's kind of my way of staying out of trouble. Because, I mean, you could be a trans ally and still be called transphobic and a bigot. So, anyway, that's my thoughts for today. Until next time.